So, all right. So, what I was saying is today we are going to talk about the atmospheric observing system. Okay, how we receive the data and then its quality control procedure, etc. Because for NWP, data is one of the most important part, right? And we have discussed earlier that NWP is basically an initial value problem. So initial value problem is your initial conditions must be very, very good. They must be very accurate. Okay. So let's see how much we can discuss today. I shall talk about what are the observing system, how do we receive the data acquisition, and little bit about the quality control, because that we shall talk more in detail in another class. So is everything is audible clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, very good.
Yes, sir.
Right. So there is a WWW. Have you heard about the WWW? World Weather Watch.
No, sir.
Yes or no?
No, sir.
No.
No,
Okay.
sir. No, sir.
Well, the World Meteorological Organization, that you know, of course, WMO, right?
Yes, sir.
WMO has a major
Yes, sir.
function or major part or a major division that is called the WWW, World Weather Watch. Okay, and through this World Weather Watch, all the global meteorological observations are received. Okay, I mean, you know that we have to get the global data to run our global model, right? But have you ever thought that how do we really receive all the global data on real time every day? So there are huge amount of data. Typically, in one day, we receive several hundred gigabytes of data. Now, several hundred gigabytes of data is received from all over the world. So, can you imagine how much? I mean, how do we receive that data on real time? And for that, this WWW has been set up by the WMO, the World Weather Watch. Okay, it is a massive telecommunication system which is linked throughout the world. It links all the countries of the United Nations to receive the meteorological data on time. And you have seen this diagram, I believe. This is a very familiar diagram, the global observing system, isn't it? You are familiar with the diagram, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Right. So, as you know, this basically shows that the global observing system consists of many types of observations through many types of instruments. Like we have got observations from the satellite, and we shall talk shortly that the world weather community has set up the satellites all around the Earth in such a way that around the clock the Earth's atmosphere is monitored by different satellites. In that, they have got the geostationary satellites, we have got the polar orbiting satellites, right, which keeps on going around the Earth and then keeps on collecting the data. Then we have got upper air data collected by the aircrafts. You might have heard that all the civilian aircrafts, all the flights which take place, they are supposed to collect atmospheric data as they fly at different altitudes in a very specific format decided by the WMO. So they collect the data we call the aircraft data or ARIFs. That got a specific format called AMDAR, ACAR. There are so many formats of the observations for different types of instruments as designed by the WMO. So aircrafts collects the observations in that format and then transmits data to its nearest hub. So I'll talk about that. What are those hubs? Then ocean, as you know, covers 3/4 of the Earth's surface. So the data from the ocean is very, very important. In fact, before the advent of satellites, there used to be very scarcity over the ocean. Ocean used to have data gaps. So only after the satellites have been launched, the meteorological satellites, we are able to get a good amount of data over the ocean. But before the satellites, what we used to have is just the ship observations. The commercial ships which which sail through the ocean all around the global ocean. They are instructed to collect the weather data over the ocean at the surface. So the ship's data are collected. Then, of course, I mean, in recent years, we have got the ocean buoys. Buoys, you might have heard that they are kind of surface observations of the ocean. They're floating as well as they're anchored, fixed. So there are floating buoys, there are anchored buoys, which consists of sensors, which measures all the surface parameters like the AWS, whatever the data is measured by the automatic weather station. Similar data is also measured by the buoy at the ocean. And in addition to the atmospheric data, they also have sensors to measure the SST, the sea surface temperature. Okay. Sometimes for the oceanography, the ocean modeling, there are also the profilers, which goes deep inside the ocean and collects the ocean profile data like salinity profile, the temperature profile inside the ocean, etc. So for our purpose, we need the data above the surface mostly. So the buoys which are fitted with this automatic weather sensor, they collect the survey data. You will find in the INQUAS site, some of you who have signed for your summer internship, the INQUAS, you might have noticed that the INQUAS maintains the buoys over the Indian ocean region, like over the Bay of Bengal and over the Arabian Sea. There are lots and lots of buoys, floating buoys as well as buoys which are anchored, and the INQUAS is supposed to maintain those buoys data. In fact, earlier, even now also it happens because the weather community, the mid departments, they go and put the buoys in the ocean. But sometimes what happens is that the buoys are kind of pirated, or they are kind of looted by the ocean pirates. Have you heard of the ocean pirates? Like dacoits over the ocean. Who just come in the ships and then they just destroy the buoys and take away all the important sensors, and then they sell in the black market. So there are pirates which who destroy these kind of buoys. So that used to happen earlier quite frequently, but nowadays it is reduced because there is nowadays surveillance by the Coast Guard people, the naval people. They have continuous surveillance. So nowadays, so much of looting of the ocean buoys doesn't take place, but earlier it used to happen. So the ocean buoys and the ships, commercial ships, they collect the data of the ocean. Some of the ships, not a commercial ships, but some special ships, like you might have heard that NIO. You have heard about the NIO Goa? The National.
Yes, sir.
Right, yeah. NIO has its own ship. Earlier it used to be Sagar Kanya. So Sagar Sampada, Sagar Nidhi, they are the special ships of the NIO, the NPOL. You must have heard about the NPOL, that is in Kochi, Kerala. Naval Physical
Yes, sir.
Laboratory, NPOL. NPOL also has its own ship. So some of these organizations, NIOT, Chennai, INQUAS also may be having its ship, but probably that is maintained by NIOT, and also the other INQUAR, right? That's the Antarctica Center, National Antarctic Ocean Research Center, that also comes under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. Okay, so these organizations, they maintain ships for different purposes, research purposes, as well as collecting the ocean observations, right? So these observations are collected regularly and then transmitted to the nearest hub. So that is all about the ocean data. Then about the surface, of course, we have got the automatic weather stations, which is fitted with all sensors for collecting observations of temperature, moisture, wind, rainfall, etc. Many things, the ARG, the automatic rain gauge, etc. Then we have got upper air stations which launches reducing balloons, generally twice a day. But because it's a quite expensive thing, you must have heard that each balloon launch costs a lot of rupees, or 10 to 15,000 rupees. And once the radio sound is launched, then it is lost. It goes on above, and then finally, when it reaches towards the tropopause, or sometimes even in the lower stratosphere, then it bursts, and then the instrument falls down. So that is lost. So like 10 to 15,000 rupees is lost every day. So it's quite expensive thing. Therefore, not all the countries are able to afford reducing balloons. And even if they have, they don't launch more than once a day. Generally, it is supposed to be twice a day. 00 UTC, that is 5:30 in the morning, and 12 UTC, that is 5:30 in the evening. So even if they launch just once a day, and generally at 12:30, I mean 12 UTC, that is 5:30 in the evening. Some of the stations in India, they launch balloons twice a day, but many of the Indian stations also launch only once a day, the reducing balloon. So reducing balloon has its own story and history. For example, I don't know whether I've told you about this reducing things, because earlier days when we didn't have the GPS sensor, the GPS instruments, then sometimes when the reducing balloon goes up, we need to have its location. What is the location, latitude, longitude of reducing balloon, and what is the altitude, to be able to know that the data which it is reporting, that belongs to which location, which altitude, and which location on the earth. Because once the balloon is launched, then it starts rising up and then also drifting away according to the wind. And as it goes up, especially above 500 millibar to 100 millibar, then winds are so strong, almost like 100 kilometer per hour, or 200 kilometer per hour if it is just jet stream. So balloon drifts away very far away, right? And then where does it fall? We don't know. Where does it burst? So now the sensors, unless we know its position, we can't tell that where exactly it belongs to. So earlier days, because the GPS was not there, so we used to track the location by another method, and sometimes that was not correct, and therefore, our radiation data was not very accurate. Although it was accurate, but we didn't know where exactly it belongs to. And in that also, sometimes, because it measures both wind as well as the geopotential height. So the accuracy of the two data used to be different. It is supposed that generally the accuracy of wind is good in the tropics, and the geopotential observation depends upon the sensor location. Because unless we have a good GPS, we don't know what would be the geopotential height. So mostly in India, especially, and some other countries also, the geopotential data used to be very, very wrong, whereas the wind data used to be okay, correct. So when we used to assimilate the data, then it used to create problem because the two were not in balance. The wind and geopotential are supposed to be in balance to obey the laws of the atmosphere, but they were not in balance. And once they are not in balance, then it used to create problem in the data assimilation. So when that happens, then we are forced to reject the data, because if they are not in balance, then data is rejected, and we used to lose a lot of data because of that way, data rejection. So most of the centers like ANSEP,
Hello.
So we can hear you. So we can hear you.
There's network problem, I guess, or his Wi-Fi may have gone off. It's Corona. It's Corona. Yeah, it is. It is.
Rahul has gone mad.
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Woke up or what? You are so sleepy, Rahul.
Hmm?
Your voice is so sleepy. Did you just wake up or what?
No, no. I attended Devesh sir's class also. I'm not
Oh.
sleepy. Yeah. Adira, you're fine? Hello, Harita. Can you call sir and
Yes.
ask?
Can you see me now? Am I visible? Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry, it was disconnected. I did not realize that. Let me also start sharing the presentation. Then we also again restart the recording. This is the problem. It will be in two parts. Then stop recording. It's already recording. Okay. So present now. Let me see. Present now. Okay. Present. Share your entire screen. And I hope it is trying to share. So are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. I'm sorry, I do not know where did we lose contact. Where was I talking? Okay, so
Sir, the observation system, sir.
was I describing this slide or before that?
So before that,
No, sir. Before
Oh, I
that,
see, I see.
global observing system.
I see. I was only explaining this slide, is it?
yes,
Hello?
sir.
Oh, I see, I see. So we lost the contact long ago. Okay, now I will have to repeat the entire thing for the next slide. Okay, so these are the surface and upper air and other networks covering the whole globe. Then, as I said, well, we missed this slide. Now we have got a series of satellites now, geostationary as well as polar orbiting satellites, which cover the entire Earth and collect the observation. For example, we have got in our region, in our longitude, our Indian region, we have got the INSAT series. Okay, INSATs placed around 83 degrees east, 83, 85, even 90 degrees east also in this region. Then we have got Meteosat, which is focused on Africa and also Europe, but covers parts of this Indian region also, especially the western part of India. Then there is a Chinese satellite 5, okay, which also covers parts of the Indian Ocean, basically, covering the South China Sea region. Then we have got the GOES, the geostationary Earth observation environmental satellite belonging to NOAA. There are two GOES, the GOES West and the GOES East. GOES West covers the entire Western Hemisphere, and GOES East covers the Eastern Hemisphere. Okay. In the Eastern Hemisphere, there is also a Japanese satellite called GMS, geostationary meteorological satellite. They've got also the MTSat, and then recently they've got the Himawari. Okay, so they are all the geostationary satellites. Then we have got the polar orbiting satellites, which are fitted with much specialized center for measurement of radiation and then the precipitation radar. The first satellites fitted with the precipitation radar was the TRMM. TRIM is now dead, so now it has been replaced by the GPM constellation of satellites under the GPM Global Precipitation Monitoring System. So those GPM satellites also have precipitation radar. Okay, so they are the polar orbiting, and then they pass, once in 4 to 6 hours around the same location on the Earth, and they also collect the data, specialized data. So all these geostationary as well as the polar satellites, they continuously monitor the Earth and keeps on providing us the global data around the clock. So this consists of huge amount of data, as I mentioned, right? More than 200 to 300 gigabytes per day. So you know how those data are received in real time, and that means that must be a very strong telecommunication system linking the whole globe, and that is called the Global Telecommunication System (GTS) for exchanging the meteorological data. If you are not listening to me, just call me on telephone because I don't know where I'm connected. So I hope you are hearing me clearly.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just call me on phone if you stop listening to me. So this GTS is a massive telecommunication network. Okay, and as part of the GTS, there are 4 major hubs. One in the Washington DC. Okay, Washington DC. Then second one over Moscow in Russia. Third one in Tokyo in Japan, and fourth one over Melbourne. Okay, in Southern Hemisphere, Australia. So these 4 major hubs called the MMC, the Main Meteorological Center, or also called the WMC, the World Meteorological Center. Okay, they have the major telecommunication hub. Then the entire globe is divided into several regional hubs. Okay, several regions. For example, we belong to region 2. Region 1 is Africa. Okay, its headquarters in Nairobi, and the region 2 is our South Asia, whose headquarters is in New Delhi. Okay, New Delhi is region 2. We belong to region 2. Then region 3 is the South America. Okay, region 3. Then region 4 is North America, Central America and the Caribbean. Region 5 is this Southwestern Pacific region, and then region 6 is the Europe. So there are 6 regions, okay, divided by the WMO for the entire covering entire globe, called RA. No, and we belong to RA2, regional 2. Okay, so each region has its headquarters, which is called the RTH, Regional Telecommunication Hub. Okay, so our RTH is located at New Delhi, and New Delhi is responsible for receiving and transmitting the meteorological observations of all the neighboring countries of South Asia, like Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Maldives, etc. They all collect their data, and the data is collected by at the designated synoptic time. You have heard about the synoptic hours, right? Synoptic hours, synoptic time.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So synoptic standard synoptic times are like now every 3 hours, 00 GMT, 03 GMT, 06, 09, and so on. Okay. So every 3 hours, the observers physically go to take the observations at the meteorological observatory, whereas the automatic weather system stations are they are, I mean, depends on what time interval it is set up. Sometimes it is set up at hourly interval, sometimes it is even less than that, depending upon the requirement and the telecommunication channel, because to transmit the data more frequently we need more line bandwidth, etc. So generally it is supposed to be hourly. All the data is collected 3 hourly or hourly, depending on the type of instruments. Satellite data, for example, if it is geostationary, then it continuously covers, but then it is stored every half an hour. The polar orbiting satellites depends upon what is the past time. The Doppler weather radar data, the scan time is about 10 minutes. Again, that depends on the country. In our case, it is 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes, the whole sky is scanned by the Doppler weather radar. So depending upon the type of the instruments, the data is collected. But then the standard synoptic hours are 0, 3, 6, etc. So at all these synoptic hours, all these countries around the world, they collect data and they communicate data to the nearest RTH, which is at New Delhi. So Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bhutan, Nepal, they all collect the data 3 hourly and communicate the data to New Delhi. And New Delhi in turn distributes all the data to all the countries, because all the countries need data for their own analysis and forecasting. So whatever data New Delhi receives from all these regions, they again redistribute the data to all these countries. Then from other part of the globe, now New Delhi receives the data, say, from its main meteorological center, the nearest main meteorological center, which is Tokyo. So Tokyo as well as Moscow, both are connected to New Delhi RTH. Okay, so both Moscow as well as Tokyo collects the data in its region. Okay, Moscow for the entire Europe, Tokyo for this entire Eastern Pacific region. They collect all data and then they distribute the data to New Delhi RTH, and New Delhi in turn again distribute the data back to Moscow and Tokyo, which it collects from this region. Okay, similarly, as I said, Washington collects data from its North American region, Central America and Caribbean. Then Southern Hemisphere data is collected by Melbourne and so on. So this way, the entire global meteorological data is collected every 3 hourly and exchanged throughout all the countries. Okay, so just imagine how massive the system bandwidth could be and how much data is exchanged every day on real time. That is the meteorological data, one of the biggest data network and data telecommunication system. Okay, this is how GTS works. Okay, so this is another diagram which illustrates how these GTS is linked. This is the New Delhi. This is actually showing the stations for RA2 region. We belong to RA2. Okay, so we also it's called RSMC. You have heard about the RSMC? Regional Specialized Meteorological Center. New Delhi is supposed to be RSMC, which covers a very big area, starting from East Africa to almost covering Indonesia in the east, and from southern hemisphere over 20 degrees south to our northern hemisphere, almost like 45 degrees north. So this is the RSMC, and this is the RA2 region now, where New Delhi is the main hub. And of course, there are RTH at Tehran, Iran, then Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, Tashkent, now in Kazakhstan. Earlier it was part of the Soviet Union. Beijing, of course, China, and all these places, as the name indicates, they are part of the old Soviet Union. Tokyo, of course, Bangkok. So these are the RTH in this region, RA2 region. So they all collect the data surrounding their region from the country surrounding their region, and then they exchange the data with RTH in New Delhi, and New Delhi in turn gives them the data back, and also receive the data from the main hub like Tokyo and Moscow, and then exchange the data. So this is how the data is exchanged. Okay. Then they said, this is another diagram which illustrates the GTS. For example, we have got the main telecommunication network, which is surrounded by the RTH, like New Delhi, Tehran, Beijing, etc., Jeddah. So all these RTH, they collect data, and then RTH in turn, they are connected through the regional networks to all the NMC, that is the National Meteorological Center, which belongs to each of these countries. Okay, National Meteorological Center. So all these data is exchanged through GTS, and of course, many of them are also exchanged through satellites. Satellite also has its own channel to exchange the data. So this way, the meteorological data is exchanged around the globe every 3 hourly at the synoptic time. Okay. So this is one of the major part of the NWP, the data acquisition, how the data is received. Okay. So this block diagram shows different parts of the NWP. First part is the data collection system. Okay. Once you have received the data, then obviously data can have lots of errors, varieties of errors. Besides the observing errors, the instrumentation error, it can also have the errors because of the communication. While the data is communicated through the GTS, it can develop some error, some communication error. So all these communication errors, instrumental errors, the manual errors, etc., the errors in the sensors, they are supposed to be quality control before it can be used in the model, right? So quality control is the second major part of the NWP system. Then there is a analysis, which consists of the analysis system, which it has two parts. One is the model part, and other is the analysis part. Like we talk about the 3D bar, 4D bar, etc. So that is the analysis part. So this analysis consists of two parts: model and the analysis system. Okay, and then of course the main model, which is the backbone, which which is run to give the main forecast up to 7 days or 10 days. Then there is a post-processing block, which post-processes all the output from model, and then displays on the graphics, and then gives to the public or communicates to the public. And then of course, all these forecasts are verified. So forecasts are archived. The data is also archived for future verification and research purpose. So these are the major blocks of the numerical weather prediction system, right? Which I'll try to discuss all these systems one by one. So now let's see how the data looks like. Have you seen these kind of slides earlier? Did I show it to you or to another batch before?
No, sir, you showed it once.
You showed it, sir.
Oh, I've shown it. Okay, so that's good. So you can just refresh it. So this slide is showing you basically the distribution of geostationary satellite data. Okay, the cloud track wind, the CMV is the cloud motion vector data, which is collected from all over the world by geostationary satellite. Then these are the data from the polar satellite, the temperature and humidity profiles sounding from the polar satellites. And these are the precipitable water and also the surface wind from the scatterometer, again collected by the polar orbiting satellites. You know, the LEO satellite, like JAM, the Cosmos, they are supposed to give us the vertical soundings, vertical profiles of the temperature, moisture, almost similar to what Radiosonde gives us. Have you heard about the LEO satellite and the JAM, Cosmos, etc.? Yes or no?
Yes, sir, we have.
Okay. So basically, you know, as I said, the Radiosonde is supposed to be a costly instrument because every time it is launched, we lose the instrument. At least we lose almost like 10 to 15,000 rupees per day. So, as a good replacement of Radiosonde is this Cosmos data or JAM data or the LEO satellite data, which gives us the profiles of the atmosphere. And there are, of course, wind profilers, that is, surface-based wind profilers, which also gives us the profile of the wind. And that is, again, although the costly instrument, and there is a one-time big investment, but there is not much recurring cost in that, like the Radiosonde. So the Radiosonde plus the wind profilers, plus the JAM data, the LEO satellite data, they all together provide us the vertical profile of the atmosphere. Okay. Then we have got the Radiosonde or the Radiosonde. Mostly you can see they are all located over the land area, very little over the ocean. Only when the ships are equipped with the Radiosonde balloon, then only they can collect the Radiosonde data over the ships. But otherwise, mostly they are over the land, and of course some of them are over the island here. Right. Then there are marine observations from the ships and the buoys. And there are aircraft observations of the wind and temperature, mostly over the Europe and America. There is very little over the Indian region, as you can see here, not much. Okay. So these are the satellite and aircraft data, and beside that, there is a network of radar. This is a old flight, so it doesn't show all the radars presently, which are about 25 to 27, and which includes both S-band as well as the C-band radars. Most of the coastal radars are S-band because you can see up to 500 600 kilometer, especially for this cyclones. And the land-based radars are generally C-band, which is about 250 kilometers or so. So radar data, they covers the land area, and mostly they measure the convective systems, the convective precipitation. So this is the data acquisition. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So once we have received the data, then the next step is the quality control of the data, right? Quality control. Quality control is a very complex thing, but very important. Okay, it has got a lot of statistics, statistical equations in that. If you try to learn that in detail, then you have to read all those statistical methods to quality control data. Okay, so in a nutshell, it consists of the following steps. The first step is, for example, the gross error check. Gross error check. Did I discuss this slide earlier in your previous class?
Yes, sir. So previous
Yes,
semester
sir.
we discussed it. So
Oh, I see. Good, very good. In what context did I discuss that? Was it like part of the modeling the atmospheric
yes, sir.
process?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. For
I
modeling,
see.
sir.
I see. Maybe just as an introduction to the NWP, probably I might have talked about that earlier. But we can anyway, because as a
Yes, sir.
continuity for the NWP, we can try to review these things. So there is a gross error check, and because I have already discussed with you gross error check, do you remember what is the gross error check? Can somebody tell me what is the gross error check? What is the gross error check? Don't remember, right?
No, sir.
So don't remember. That means it is important that we should discuss again or review it. Well, gross error check is like every observation has a climatological value, a magnitude which is dependent on the climatology of that observation. For instance, at this location, say in the university or at your location, wherever you are located, the temperature for this time of the day, for this time of the year, will have a certain range, For example, say in Rajasthan at this time of the day, the temperature may be about 30, 35 degree centigrade, right? But if some station in this region reports a temperature of 50 degrees centigrade, or say reports a temperature of 10 degrees centigrade, then obviously that is wrong, right? There is a gross error in that, right? And how do we know that there is a gross error? Because we know the climatology of the temperature for this region, for this time of the day, for this time of the year, for this location, right? So every data that is received from all these networks that we have discussed today, that is passed through this gross error check, whether any data is beyond the gross limit. And if so, then it is rejected and put in the rejection list. Okay. Then there is a neighborhood check. Okay, neighborhood check. Do you know what is the neighborhood check? The neighborhood check. Neighborhood check means whatever is the data here, reported here at this location, must be consistent also with its neighbors. Like whatever data is reported in Mandar Sindri, in Suraj, should be consistent with the data which is reported in Kishangarh, or should be consistent with the data reported at Ajmer or even Jaipur. They are not very far away, just within the range of 100 kilometers. If they are different, that means there is something wrong. Either there has to be a very specialized system, something mesoscale circulation, because of which there is a difference between the data reported in Suraj and that in the Ajmer, or there is something wrong in the data observation. So that is called the neighborhood check. Right? You compare the data with your neighborhood, right? So if something is too much different, and if we know that, because we know what is happening now, right? So whatever data is reported, or we know that what was happening 3 hours ago, right? So data which comes from the GTS 3 hours ago, data reporting 3 hours ago, if that is not consistent with the weather, and it is not consistent with the neighborhood, then we know that there is something wrong in the data, and we put in the rejection list. Okay. We put the flags in that. Actually, the model puts flags like something which is totally unacceptable, that is put in the red flag zone, right? It is not acceptable. Then something which is doubtful may or may not be accepted, that is put in the yellow flag zone, right? Now, just like football match, the umpire they has yellow card and the red card if some football player is doing too much of fouls, making a lot of mistake, then he will show him a card, red card if it's too much mistake, or a yellow card, and then give him a warning that you be careful, correct yourself, otherwise I will throw you out of the team. Similarly, the data is also assigned these flags, that if it's a red card, that means it is just rejected. If it's yellow card, that means it is again checked later on, that whether something was wrong, which could be corrected later on. Because in any case, all the data are utilized later on in the future for research purpose, for verification purpose. So each of the data is very, very important, and we try not to reject as much as possible unless it is really, really very bad, right? Because each data has a cost, right? We spend lakhs and lakhs of rupees to collect the data observations. So they are very, very valuable, and therefore we try to preserve, archive, and utilize as much as possible by doing the quality control. So that is a neighborhood check. Then there is a manual correction also. After doing all those things, there is a manual correction. Of course, there is a temporal check also for that. Right? Temporal check means checks in time. Like whatever data was reported 1 hour ago should not be much different from what is reported now, right? Because weather, we know that weather has not changed drastically in the last 1 hour, unless there is a thunderstorm. Suppose in the last 1 hour there is a thunderstorm, then of course there will be a lot of change in the observation of temperature, for example, or even the wind field. So unless there is system, we know that whatever happened 1 hour ago will not be much different from now. There will be some difference because as the day progresses, the temperature increases. So that difference will be there, but other than that, there should not be a drastic change. So that is called the temporal check. Check with time. So temporal check, neighborhood check, gross error checks. After all that, then we finally do also the manual check. at big centers, there are scientists which are assigned, they are analysts which are assigned this job to check manually the observations to make sure that all the observations are correct. Otherwise, it will create a problem in the model if they are not correct. Okay, so these are the quality control procedures. We shall discuss further in detail about this quality control process now, a little bit more mathematically in the next class. Okay, so that is the quality control. Then the next step is the analysis step, in which we analyze the data. Okay, whatever data has been reported by different stations scattered around the space or the globe or the country, that is analyzed, that means brought to the regular grid point in the domain, model domain, by interpolation techniques, and then analyzed or assimilated in the model. And I think that also I have discussed earlier probably. I guess I have discussed this slide also earlier. I must have discussed that in this case.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is an example which illustrates that these are, for example, the model grids, and these are the locations of observations now which are scattered in space. So all these scattered observations have to be interpolated to the regular grid to be able to assimilate in the model. So this is we call the analysis. Okay, and it uses certain mathematical technique for that, along with the model forecast, which is used as a first guess. Okay, and the basic analysis equation, this also you must have seen then earlier, is given by this expression. The analysis value is equal to the background value or the first guess which comes from the previous 6-hour model forecast plus the correction. And the correction is because of the new data which comes, whatever is the anomaly now which has occurred because of the new data from compared to the past data, that is the correction, which the correction is introduced in this, and then we get the new analysis and then march forward. Okay, so I think today probably we have almost covered 1 hour 25 minutes. So better we stop today because we have still lot more to discuss for today, which we can discuss in tomorrow's class. Is that okay?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Just like 12:25 now, so we stop 5 minutes before and give you time for any point or discussion. If you have anything to discuss in today's lecture, then we can discuss those things now. No?
So one question.
And
Sir.
these slides, yes. Tell me.
Sir, for that neighborhood correction, sir, if the topography changes within like 50 to 60 kilometers, then the values will change drastically, the meteorological values.
Yes.
So can that be taken in account?
Yeah, of course. That has to be taken into account because suppose if you are at the bottom of the hill and you have a station at the bottom of the hill and you have another station at the top of the hill. Okay, so the horizontal distance may not be much, although the altitude difference will be there from the two stations. Right, one station may be located at say 900 meters above the mean sea level, and another station may be at the mean sea level. So there will be difference, and those things have to be taken into account. Obviously, never will check. Okay. So similarly, on the top of the hill, there will be maybe sometimes we have got more clouds on the hilltops like stratus, etc. So those things will be different. So those things are taken into account certainly. Any other point?
No, sir.
Okay, so you have understood how the GTS works, right? The global telecommunication system works, isn't it? Of course, you can review that. You can go through the slides which I have explained to you, and you can once again listen to the lecture and then make your own notes. Okay.
Yes,
So, no other point. Then we stop for today, and we will meet tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right. I stop recording, and Rahul will